I'm Nima Rajan. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos is representing Canada at a special meeting of the World Health Assembly that opened today amid the emergence of the new COVID-19 Omicron variant. The World Health Organization wants the Assembly to develop an international treaty to help prevent and fight future pandemics. It is praising Botswana and South Africa for quickly alerting the world to the presence of the Omicron variant, warning that the countries should not be punished with travel bans. All right, well, meanwhile, Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health reports that doctors are investigating 4 more possible cases of the COVID-19 Omicron variant, 2 in Hamilton and 2 in Ottawa. These potential cases are in addition to the 2 reported over the weekend in Ottawa in people who landed in Montreal after recently traveling to Nigeria. Dr. Kieran Moore says the province is looking at its strategy for 3rd COVID-19 vaccine doses and other measures to better protect people from the variant. Quebec health officials have also confirmed a case of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Canadians are being advised to prepare for a weather whiplash this winter. Weather Network meteorologist Chris Scott says La Niña conditions will result in drastic shifts in temperatures and precipitation. British Columbia and most of the prairies will see heavy precipitation. This while Ontario and Quebec can expect a battle between seasonal highs and lows with stormy winter weather and extended mild periods. Atlantic Canada should expect below normal snowfall and above normal temperatures. BC's Public Safety Minister is advising against non-essential travel in the coming days. This comes as the province braces for the 3rd in a trio of heavy rainstorms. Mike Farnworth also suggests people prepare for emergencies by carrying food, water, warm clothes, blankets, and well-stocked emergency kits in their vehicles. Officials warn that the next storm could reach intensities similar to those seen in the downpour that destroyed highways and flooded communities 2 weeks ago. A 13-year legal battle between CP Rail and the Saskatchewan government that is scheduled to wrap up next month moves to the provincial legislature today. The railway is suing the province for $341 million over a clause in an 1880 contract. They are arguing for a return of taxes paid to the province since 2002 and a declaration that future taxes are not payable. The tax exemption was granted in exchange for an agreement to build a transcontinental railway. It became part of the Saskatchewan Act in the Constitution. The provincial government wants to amend the Constitution as it relates to the Saskatchewan Act, repealing the section that exempts CP from paying the taxes. Ottawa is expected to reintroduce a bill today to ban conversion therapy. If passed, the legislation would outlaw practices that seek to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. The move would potentially close loopholes that emerged the last time such legislation came before Parliament, while also fulfilling a Liberal campaign promise. The previous bill, known as C6, won backing from most MPs, but there was strong opposition from more than half of the Conservative caucus. 11 schools and 2 early learning centers in New Brunswick will pilot new French second language programs for Anglophone students this school year. Education Minister Dominic Cardy says all students should be able to converse in both official languages by the time they graduate high school. He says it's hoped that the new programs will increase the chances of success for all students. New Brunswick is Canada's only officially bilingual province. Videos are circulating on social media of Quebec City police involved in a violent weekend arrest of 2 Black teenagers. Premier François Legault tweeted on Sunday that he is aware of the troubling footage and believes, quote, "We need to shed light on the event." Police say the videos are from an interaction that took place between November 26th and 27th. Videos show officers dragging, hitting, and pinning down 2 Black youths in the snow. A news release said the force is deeply concerned by the behavior of the officers and is investigating. Nova Scotia has established what's believed to be Canada's first 24-hour helpline exclusively for men. This was in response to an urgent need that arose as the COVID-19 pandemic took hold. Soon after the province was locked down in March 2020, men started calling Nova Scotia's 211 service for information about government and community services. The Family Service of Eastern Nova Scotia says it soon became clear that more men were actively seeking help as they struggled with job losses, relationship breakdowns, loneliness, anger, and anxiety. All right, stay with us. We will be back after the break. The Omicron COVID-19 variant spreads. World powers hold meetings with Iran over its nuclear program, and the global refugee crisis continues to worsen. We will take a look at Canada and the world with Mr. Stockwell Day after the break. The World Health Organization has opened a 3-day meeting of the World Health Assembly to push for an international accord to help prevent and fight future pandemics. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the emergence of the highly mutated Omicron variant underlines why the world needs a new accord on pandemics. This while world powers meet with Iran today in Vienna to discuss the 2015 nuclear deal. Last week, a tragedy in the English Channel saw at least 27 migrants die in a crossing attempt, highlighting the global refugee crisis. And in Ethiopia, the situation continues to devolve after the Prime Minister said he would lead from the battlefront. Well, with us to discuss Omicron, Iran, refugees, Ethiopia, and more is consultant and former Trade Minister, Mr. Stockwell Day. Sir, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Hi, good to be with you.
Now, lots going on in the world today, sir, but let's talk about what's making headlines across Canada, the Omicron variant. So we know we've got 2 confirmed cases in Canada, 4 being investigated. How has Canada reacted to news of this new variant compared to other governments?
Well, Canada's reacting as well as can be, and compared to other countries, everybody is sort of surprised by this news, but not surprised because we've all been hearing, and I think rightly, that there's going to be variants continue, just as there were variants with the flu. Every year it was a different type of flu, and so a different type of vaccination. There's concern among some countries about the WHO having too heavy a hand in saying how all countries should react and should they all be doing the same thing. As you know, WHO has made some offside predictions since the beginning. On some areas they've been right and some they've been very wrong related to COVID. My concern would be countries who are wanting to try different approaches being stopped from doing that. For instance, Sweden, who's, by the way, just re-elected their female prime minister. That's a history breaker for them and for European countries. They take a much different approach, and they have a very low transmission rate, very low death rate. And yet other countries don't seem to be able to at least look and discuss what a country like Sweden does. Allowing members of parliament to have discussions in a committee session about different approaches is very important. So by all means, at the World Health Organization, these things should be looked at and we should glean from that, but countries should be looked at also who are handling it differently with varying levels of success.
And meanwhile, the reopening of the U.S.-Canada border 3 weeks ago was a long time coming, sir. So how do you see this new variant impacting travel at the U.S.-Canada border moving forward?
Well, Canadians are quite worried about that. I would say more so than Americans. I've been working and traveling in the U.S. for a few weeks now in a number of different states, Democrat states, so-called blue, so-called red. And it's amazing the difference in terms of attitude. The discussion on COVID just hardly ever comes up. And it's not as locked down as Canada is. So it's a very different feeling. Americans, honestly, they like us as their neighbors, but these issues at the border aren't front in mind like they are to Canadians. So we're hoping it gets resolved. Canadians have just been enjoying being able to cross the border again, and we hope that remains to be the case.
All right, sir. Well, jumping to the nuclear talks with Iran, we know a lot of concerning developments in Iran, having enriched its uranium up to 60%. So that's very close to the 90% needed for a nuclear weapon. Give our viewers a bit of a background on the situation and what to expect from these meetings.
Well, again, very concerning situation, radioactivity being a virus of its own and very deadly, of course. Canada's history, even recently with Iran, has not been good. I was a member of parliament when the whole situation with Ms. Kazemi took place, the Iranian-Canadian journalist who was captured, interrogated, tortured, raped, and finally killed. Iran always has said, well, she fell down and hurt herself, but it was not revealed that way at all by the autopsy. And it was shortly after that, in 2012, Canada closed its embassy, Iranian embassy, and also its embassy in Iran. So between Canada and Iran, it's been rocky. Prime Minister Trudeau has indicated he wants to see that open up. And it's very concerning to some countries that Iran, it's called a threshold nation in terms of nuclear capability. It has the ability to be called nuclear breakout. And it's always been deemed that it can break out very quickly if sanctions are lifted. The whole issue of sanctions being put back, it's going to be hugely contentious because some maintain the sanctions had Iran at the point of revolution internally and maybe a breakdown of that oppressive regime, which still says its goal is to exterminate Israel and to kill Jews. People tend to forget that. So these are very tense times on these negotiations. And the hope is that something will put in place, at least where we can be very clearly observing what Iran's nuclear intentions and ongoing capabilities are.
All right, sir, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on those developments. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. A recent survey by the Canadian Women's Foundation finds low confidence levels among Canadians when it comes to knowing exactly what to do to help or support a victim of gender-based violence. According to the report, about 2/3 or 64% of people know a woman who has experienced sexual, physical, or emotional abuse. However, only 1 in 6 people are confident enough to know what to say or do to help someone experiencing sexual or emotional abuse, while only 1 in 5 know how to take action for someone experiencing physical abuse. Considering today is day 5 of the UN's 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, the Canadian Women's Foundation joins us now to tell us more about the right steps to take to help victims of gender-based violence. And to tell us exactly how to do that is Vice President of Public Engagement, Ms. Andrea Gunraj. Ma'am, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the recent survey on Canadian confidence levels in helping victims of gender-based violence. What would you say are the main takeaways?
Well, we know that it's pretty low. We know a lot of people know somebody who's experienced this form of violence. It's things like intimate partner abuse and gender-based violence, like sexual violence and emotional abuse and physical assault, particularly in relationships and things that happen behind closed doors. But people don't necessarily feel very confident that they would know how to be a supportive person if somebody came to them and needed help. And they wouldn't know necessarily how to do that in a way that's non-judgmental. So we have some work to do to make sure that people's competency and confidence is built up to be able to address it.
Now, let's start with recognizing the signs of abuse. Now, when it comes to emotional or sexual abuse, this can be very intimate and even hard to recognize. So what are the telltale signs of this particular type of abuse, ma'am?
Well, this abuse, first of all, is very, very common. We know that sexual assault and emotional abuse are so common that more than 50% of people say that they experience it, particularly women and gender diverse people experience it in their lifetimes. Girls experience it, boys experience it as well too, people who are younger. So it's not really clear that there's particular forms of signs that you can see that somebody's experiencing this violence. Same thing with physical abuse, particularly intimate partner abuse. It's not really that there's any one way that it's going to come out. What I think is important for us to remember is we have friends and family who might come to us saying that they have experienced something, or we might find that they are feeling withdrawn, or we're not sure that they're okay. We just have this feeling that something is wrong. What I think is most important, rather than recognizing any particular signs of abuse, is being an open-minded, kind, and generous person in a proactive way. Telling your family and friends, I will listen to you, I will respond to you, I won't judge you. That is most powerful than recognizing any particular forms of violence, so that you know when they're ready to come to you to speak about this often hidden and taboo form of violence, that they know that you will listen and you will support them.
All right, ma'am. So once you recognize that someone is being emotionally or sexually abused, what are some realistic steps someone can take to help them?
Most important of all is allowing the person who's going through that violence to take the lead. You ask them, how can I support you right now? Maybe they'll just want you to listen and be a kind and non-judgmental person. That is so powerful. You can do that. Maybe they'll ask you, what are the services and supports that I can go to? Do you know the places that people can go to address this violence? Usually there might be 1 or 2 services in your area that specialize in that. Know that. Maybe they'll ask you to call authorities. that might be possible. Be ready to do that and be alongside that person. Leaving a violent situation, especially if it's an active, ongoing violent situation, it can take years. It can be so difficult. So being just a patient person along the way and letting the person who's going through that violence take the lead, I cannot stress how powerful that is. And I think we can do it, but we have to build up our own competency and competency in this. And we also have to be ready to take those difficult steps and just manage our own emotions along the way, get the support we need along the way so that we can be that strong person and that kind person that a survivor would need.
And on that note of addressing your own personal safety and needs, what steps can you take when addressing physical abuse? Because especially when we touch on physical abuse, you might be endangering your own safety.
Well, certainly not doing anything that will endanger yourself. I think, again, letting the person who's going through the violence take the lead so that they'll tell you, this is not a safe time to talk, or this is a safer time to talk. Let them be that person because they know they're the expert of what they're going through right there. And I think it's important for you to know those services and supports that you can call. There are crisis lines that if you are experiencing that secondary trauma when you're supporting somebody else, you can give them a call and say, listen, I'm going through this hard time because I'm so sad my friend is going through this or my family member is going through this. Give me some tips. Those folks can help you.
The World Health Organization has opened a virtual 3-day summit of its decision-making body to push for an international accord to help prevent and fight future pandemics. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the new Omicron variant demonstrates just why a new accord is needed. He says the current system disincentivizes countries from alerting others to threats. Mr. Tedros is stressing that South Africa and Botswana should be praised, not penalized with travel bans for detecting the new variant. Meanwhile, doctors in South Africa say most patients they are treating with the new COVID-19 Omicron variant have mild symptoms and are not being hospitalized. A general practitioner in the province, where 81% of the new cases have been reported, says he has seen a sharp increase in new COVID-19 cases in the past 10 days. Most patients have flu-like symptoms, and the doctor says he has observed that those who are vaccinated are faring much better than those who are not vaccinated. Well, it's anyone's guess as to whether the landmark 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world powers can be restored. Iran and 6 global powers gather in Vienna today to discuss the tattered treaty. Since the previous U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew from the agreement in 2018, Iran has raced forward with its nuclear program, making it all but impossible to turn back the clock. The election of a hardline leader in Iran, coupled with a U.S. administration seen as weak in the region, have further dampened prospects for a breakthrough. Russia's Navy has successfully test-fired a prospective hypersonic missile. The Russian Defense Ministry said Monday that the Admiral Gorshkov frigate in the White Sea has launched the Zircon cruise missile, and it hit a practice target 400 kilometers away. The Navy has conducted a series of test launches of Zircon and is set to officially commission the new weapon next year. President Vladimir Putin has said Zircon would be capable of flying at 9 times the speed of sound and have a range of 1,000 kilometers. Lawmakers from all 3 Baltic states have met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. This is a sign of further cooperation between European Union nations and Taiwan. It is the first joint visit to Taiwan by members of parliament from Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. President Tsai welcomed the lawmakers to the 2021 Open Parliament Forum on Monday. She noted that, quote, Taiwan and the Baltic nations share similar experiences of breaking free of authoritarian rule and fighting for freedom. Indian lawmakers have repealed agricultural legislation that provoked a year of nationwide protests from farmers. India's parliament passed the Farm Laws Repeal Bill on Monday. This was 10 days after Mr. Modi announced the surprise decision to withdraw the reforms. The move was seen as a major reversal and rare climb down for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. Tens of thousands of farmers kept protesting outside the capital for the past year. They say the new laws would shrink their income. Magdalena Andersson, who was Sweden's first woman prime minister but only held her post for 7 hours, has been re-elected. In a 101 to 173 vote on Monday, the Riksdag elected Ms. Andersson, who is leader of the Social Democrats, as prime minister. There were 75 abstentions. She will form a one-party minority government that is expected to be named on Tuesday. She served as prime minister for 7 hours before stepping down last week after the Greens left her two-party coalition over her budget proposal. Twitter says co-founder Jack Dorsey will step down as CEO of the social media platform. He will be succeeded by Twitter's current chief technology officer, Parag Agrawal. Mr. Dorsey will remain on the board until his term expires in 2022. In a letter posted to his Twitter account, Mr. Dorsey says he was really sad, yet really happy about leaving the company, and that this was his decision. 61 people stuck in a pub in England's Yorkshire Dales woke up this morning after their third and likely final night at the Tan Hill Inn. Most went there Friday evening to listen to an Oasis cover band called Noasis, but the building was cut off by a blizzard. The pub is used to bad weather, though, and is well stocked. So some patrons are now calling the cover band Snowasis. The word vaccine has been declared the 2021 Word of the Year by Merriam-Webster. The selection announced earlier today follows last year's choice by the dictionary company of pandemic as tops in their lookups on its online site. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time.